Hello everyone! Today I'm going to be coloring a picture with watercolor and colored pencils. So let's get started! So first I start off by laying down a gray color all over the background. I decided I kind of wanted the background to be like a steel wall, I guess, so I chose a bluish gray. And so this picture is a mermaid inside of like a science flask thing. At first this picture was gonna be kind of happy, and then like she was just like happy in this little bottle, and then I'm like, you know, it might be kind of depressing being in a little bottle. So then I'm like, what if she's like the first mermaid ever found and a scientist found her and put her in this science flask thing? So that was kind of the concept for that, and she's like all sad, like, let me out, I don't want to be in here. For her top, I decided maybe it's kind of like a seaweed wrap kind of top. I was debating if I wanted to do seashells or something else, or maybe just like a type of cloth, but then I decided with the seaweed. I chose pink for the hair because I thought that would help her stand out a lot compared to everything else, because I was going to make everything else kind of on the bluey, more cool side. So I thought if I made her hair pink, it'd make her really pop and would draw our eyes to her. And here I am going in with the skin tone, and that is what I'm doing. So I'm pretty new to watercolor. I mean, I kind of am. I've been experimenting with it a lot recently, and I'm starting to feel more comfortable with it, which I'm really happy about. If you follow me on some of the social media sites I'm on, you've probably been seeing my watercolor practices, and I'm definitely getting more comfortable with it and enjoying working with them more. I do use colored pencil a lot in this piece. Just to tighten things up and add a lot of detail. Here I'm adding blue in the flask. I wasn't totally sure. I don't think she's in water. It's more like she's in some kind of blue liquid, like maybe it's like a enhanced water that will be good for her. I don't know. But it's not water she's in. She's in kind of like a blue liquid, so that's why I made it super blue. And here I am going in with the colored pencil. I kind of wish for the tail that I would have maybe made it a different color. I do really like the green. It's just when I add the blue on top, it just makes it look more like a bluish green, and like with her skin, you can really tell it goes into the blue water stuff. But with her tail, it just kind of looks more like a bluey green, so I kind of wish I would have chose a different color for her tail. But at the same time, I still like the pink and green combo. Here I am just going in with colored pencil and darkening the shadows and just adding more detail to areas that were kind of hard to get into with the watercolor. And here I'm going on top with my Prismacolor fine line marker. I think that's what they're called. I decided to not do line art first. I decided to just go over my sketch with colored pencil first, because it generally doesn't smear very badly with the watercolor. And sometimes when I go in with ink first, the ink becomes muted because the watercolor goes on top of it. So I like to go in with with the ink pens later, just so that the lines are very crisp and dark. And I was so nervous when I was doing this arm because I overall really liked her hand right there, but it was so tiny. Like when you look at it compared to like the nib of the pen, it was so tiny. So I was doing like the lightest pressure I could around her hand to keep the shape, and I'm very thankful that they turned out okay because I was so nervous about the hands. I'm like, okay, it's time for the hands. And I decided to not outline anything that was in the water. So I stopped outlining her torso once it hit the water, and I stopped outlining, I didn't outline any of her tail. Here I am adding some more blue to the flask, and I just recently got a new watercolor palette. Oh, here I'm going in with Gouache. Gouache is pretty just like pigmented paint. It's kind of close to watercolor, I guess. It's just like super pigmented. So I'm doing that to clean up the edges of the bottle and just make it more shiny. Anyways, back to my watercolor palette. I just recently got a new watercolor palette because I figured I should invest in a nicer one since I've been using watercolors more and I want to be able to use all my colors. I only had a small one, so I could only use a little bit of my colors. So I got a bigger one, and it came with a free sample of like fancy paint. My paint is from Walmart, and I overall like how it works. I think it works really decently. Of course, I've never used like more expensive paint, but I'm comfortable with it and I like how it works. But I tried this more expensive paint and it's really, really nice, so I might be asking for expensive paints for Christmas. And here, oh, right there, I was taking my chalk pastel pencils and I rubbed it on a piece of paper towel, and I was basically just getting all of the color to go onto the paper towel. And then I rubbed it on my picture just to give it a gradient of kind of dark shadow. You can't really notice it very much, but it did kind of make a difference. I had to go back in and clean up the gouache again because it wasn't totally dry when I dabbed the shadow on it. So it took the pigment with it and I was like, ah, what happened? Here I am just tightening things up on the tail and adding more color to it. So yeah. Here I'm adding more shading to the bottle. I had a lot of fun with the bottle. I always really like coloring shiny things just because there's such a difference in contrast. And it's really fun. I really like coloring the bottle. And here I'm going on the outside of the bottle with like a gray color. I wanted to give it a slight outline just to make it stick out a little bit more. And here I'm coloring the top of the bottle. I was debating if I wanted the top to be slightly see-through, but then I thought that would just make things kind of complicated. So I just kind of kept it white with some gray in the middle. You can't really see any color through it because I thought that just make things kind of complicated. Here I'm adding more detail to the background, trying to give it a little bit more texture with the color pencil, and I do go in with a little bit of gouache. And I'm just kind of adding some rust lines. I don't totally know what to describe those as, just like a weird texture to give the wall to make it more interesting. I overall really like how this piece turned out. I'm pretty proud of it. I was pretty nervous going in. I'm like, have I bitten off more than I can chew? Because it had like an actual like kind of background that I was going to be coloring. And she was so tiny that I was scared I was going to mess up the details. And I was overall just really nervous going into this piece. And I'm like, if this picture doesn't turn out good, I'm gonna have nothing for this this Saturday's video. I don't know why I always think I upload on Friday. I always think I upload on Friday. I upload on Saturday. I would have nothing for this Saturday's video, so I'm like, this has to go good, please. Here I'm adding gouache for the bubbles. I had to go over the bubbles quite a few times because the gouache, as it dries, becomes less noticeable, so I had to go over the bubbles quite a few times before they really stood out. But I really like them. I like the extra detail of the bubbles. So this video is pretty much done. Here is the finished picture. I'm really happy with how it turned out and I really like it. And so yeah, I had a lot of fun working with the watercolor and I'm glad it turned out good. Watercolor can sometimes turn out really bad for me. So thank you all so much for watching and I'll see you in my next video.